Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The total confirmed number of coronavirus cases around the world is nearing 4.2 million, with over 286,000 known deaths. In the U.S., the number of confirmed infections is over 1.3 million, with over 80,000 reported deaths. Dr. Anthony Fauci is testifying today before a Senate panel, is expected to tell lawmakers opening up the country prematurely will lead to, quote, needless suffering and death. Fauci is appearing remotely after White House staffers recently tested positive for COVID-19. The chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor and Pensions Committee, Senator Lamar Alexander, will also be remote after one of his staffers contracted the virus. As countries around the world move to reopen their economies, more surges in COVID-19 cases are being reported. In Germany, infections are on the rise as the country gradually comes out of lockdown. Meanwhile, France reported almost 4 times as many deaths Monday than the day before as it began reopening its economy this week. The World Health Organization's Director General warned countries against a hasty winding down of lockdowns Monday.
To protect lives and livelihoods, a slow, steady lifting of lockdowns is key to both stimulating economies while also keeping a vigilant eye on the virus so that control measures can be quickly implemented if an upswing in cases is identified.
In Russia, President Vladimir Putin announced Monday a phased relaxing of restrictions, even as the country is experiencing a surge in infections. Russia has over 232,000 cases, becoming the country with the second highest number of confirmed cases behind the United States. In other news from Russia, at least 5 coronavirus patients died at a St. Petersburg hospital today after a ventilator caught fire. This comes just days after a fire at a Moscow hospital killed 1 COVID patient. Back in Washington, D.C., President Trump clashed with Asian-American CBS reporter Weijia Jiang when she confronted him over the issue of testing.
Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world, and maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you, I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay, anybody else? Please, go ahead in the back, please.
I have 2 questions.
No, it's okay.
But you pointed to me. I have 2 questions, Mr. President.
Next, please.
But you called on me.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on the young lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague finish, but can I ask you
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That second reporter addressing Trump was CNN's Caitlin Collins as Trump walked off the stage. Last month, Trump went after Chinese-American reporter Weijia Jiang after she questioned him about his failure to warn Americans about the virus in February as he held packed political rallies. He told her at the time to just relax and, quote, keep your voice down. Trump also falsely claimed at his Monday news briefing that anyone who wants to get a test can get one. Pressed by a reporter, Health and Human Services official Admiral Brett Giroir later clarified anybody who needs a test can get one, specifying this covered people with COVID-19 symptoms or who were knowingly exposed to the virus. At the briefing, Trump was standing in front of a banner that read, "America leads the world in testing." Meanwhile, the Washington Post reports a planned visit to a Pennsylvania factory producing personal protective equipment was scuttled last week after officials at the Braskem factory expressed concern for the health of its workers. Trump has refused to wear a face mask when out in public. Last week, he toured a Honeywell plant in Arizona without a mask, ignoring a sign ordering anyone inside to wear a facial covering. On Monday, the White House ordered all West Wing employees to wear masks unless at their desks, though the requirement does not extend to Trump or to Vice President Mike Pence. At the Rose Garden briefing, Trump did not wear a face mask. All the reporters did. The largest study to date on the use of hydroxychloroquine against the coronavirus has confirmed earlier research that the anti-malarial drug could cause serious heart problems and is not an effective treatment for COVID-19. Trump has repeatedly touted the drug. The latest study, published Monday in the Journal of the American Medical Association, looked at nearly 1,500 patients in New York and found that those on hydroxychloroquine had a similar death rate to those who did not take it, but were more than twice as likely to suffer a heart attack. Dr. William Schaffner, an infectious disease expert and advisor to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, said, quote, "The nail has virtually been put in the coffin of hydroxychloroquine," unquote. On Monday, China warned it would take countermeasures in response to new visa rules imposed by the Department of Homeland Security, which will restrict entry for Chinese journalists to 90-day work visas. Previously, Chinese journalists were regularly granted open-ended visas to the United States. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, the country's largest meatpacking workers union, is condemning the reopening of 14 meatpacking plants under a recent executive order by President Trump. The union's calling for CDC coronavirus safety guidelines to be made mandatory, as at least 30 meatpacking workers have died of COVID-19 and over 10,000 have been exposed or infected by the coronavirus. Many of the meatpacking workers are immigrants. India is moving to ease its nationwide lockdown despite still registering thousands of daily cases. Long-distance railway services are being restored today, which means many of the migrant workers who became stranded after India imposed its strict lockdown in March can finally go home. India has over 71,000 confirmed cases and over 2,300 reported deaths. In related news, a train killed at least 16 migrant workers in the western state of Maharashtra last week after it ran over a group of people sleeping on the tracks. The laborers were reportedly making their way home on foot. In Yemen, Aden was declared infested Monday by local authorities as coronavirus cases surge in the war-ravaged city. The UN confirmed the coronavirus has taken hold in Yemen, which is already reeling from widespread hunger and a crippled health system after years of the U.S.-backed Saudi bombing of Yemen. In East Africa, farmers continue to battle one of the worst locust invasions the region has seen in decades. Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia are at risk of major food shortages as crops are destroyed while the coronavirus and its economic implications threaten to further compound food insecurity for millions. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warns 500,000 people could succumb to AIDS-related illnesses in sub-Saharan Africa due to shortages in vaccines and essential medicines caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The disruption to local health services could see AIDS-related deaths reaching 2008 levels when it claimed nearly 1 million lives. Coronavirus lockdowns have been easing in some African nations, including Nigeria, the continent's most populous country. South Africa, which imposed strict measures and has recorded the highest number of cases, has permitted daily outdoor exercise and for restaurants to deliver food, though most of its other restrictions remain in place. A group of over 50 organizations sent a letter to presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden Monday, urging him to adopt a foreign policy that prioritizes diplomacy and multilateralism over militarism. The letter was also sent to President Trump. The effort was organized by Demand Progress, and backers include Greenpeace U.S., Our Revolution, Muslim Public Affairs Council, and the National Iranian American Council, Action. The group is demanding Biden commit to a number of progressive foreign policy positions, including reducing the military budget, diplomatic engagement with Iran and North Korea, opposing non-democratic regime change, supporting Palestinian rights, and protecting the War Powers Act, which requires lawmakers to authorize military action. In related news, Joe Biden said last month that as president he would engage with Cuba, but that U.S. sanctions over its support for the government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela could still remain in place. Joe Biden also recently expressed support for Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido and his, quote, efforts to restore democracy, unquote. Guaido has been trying to gain support for the ouster of Maduro since last year's unsuccessful coup attempt. In related news, Venezuela says it arrested 3 more mercenaries suspected of being involved in a failed coup against President Maduro and seized 3 abandoned Colombia combat vessels reportedly equipped with machine guns and ammunition. In Bolivia, anti-hunger protests broke out Monday in the city of Cochabamba. Injuries were reported among the protesters as police and military clamped down on the demonstrations. Protesters are calling out the lack of food assistance and other support from the government as people continue to lose their livelihoods due to the pandemic. Protests are also taking place against the unelected right-wing government of interim President Jeanine Áñez, who took power after the ouster last year of President Evo Morales. This comes after Áñez issued a decree imposing criminal charges on people who, quote, spread doubt among the population or disseminate false information, quote, online, in the latest move to restrict freedom of expression and silence media that are critical of her government. In Mexico, a 21-year-old Oaxacan environmental activist, Aogi Roy, was shot dead last week. The young biology student's friends, family, and other activists are calling for justice for Aogi. Local authorities say they're investigating the killing. Back in the United States, outrage is mounting in Indianapolis following a string of killings by police that took place last week in a span of less than 24 hours. On Wednesday night, 21-year-old Drayshawn Reed, a black man, was fatally shot by an officer following a car chase that was live-streamed on Facebook. The following day, 19-year-old African-American Mikhail Rose was shot and killed after what police described as a planned ambush against the officers. And in a third unrelated incident, that same day, a police officer killed 23-year-old Ashlyn Lisby, who was pregnant, by hitting her with his car as he drove to work. At a protest Saturday over Sean Reed's killing, police attempted to disperse crowds by deploying pepper balls and arrested at least one person. And in legal news, Supreme Court justices will hear arguments today in 3 highly anticipated cases involving President Trump's attempts to shield his tax returns and financial documents from lawmakers and a New York prosecutor. The public will also be able to listen to the live-streamed arguments as the Supreme Court continues to hear cases remotely amidst the coronavirus outbreak. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the Quarantine Report. I am Amy Goodman in New York City, the epicenter of the pandemic, with my co-host Juan Gonzalez joining us from his home in New Jersey. Hi, Juan.
Good morning, Amy, and a good day to all of our viewers and listeners across the country and around the world.